Good friend of mine has been traveling in Mexico, and he got me this nice pair of Nike SBs. Nike Dunk Negro Nubuck Blanco, so black Nubuck Synthetica. Okay, so here we are. Of course, these are fake. That no question about that. And we'll just from the where they came from and what the packaging looks like. So that's we're gonna set the box aside, and we've got the shoes here, so we pretty much have a pretty good idea of what's going on here with these. But the other part of the action here is we've got a fresh pair of real ones. So let's go ahead and crack these open, and we'll get a look, just to prove to you that these are in fact brand new. No one gives these to me. I get to buy them. Okay, Nike Dunk Low Retro. So obviously, when you look at these things, which one of these looks like the real one? So obviously from our, if you read our book, How to Spot Fake Sneakers, we're going to look at provenance first thing, and then also you're going to look at packaging right away. And even though, this thing came, the packaging a little smashed, but okay, here we go. We actually really have tissue. And for once in our lives, we actually have the same colorway that we're going to study. So we'll pull these out and look at it. So again, we're gonna try to cover a lot of ground. I don't know if we're gonna manage it all in one video, but first, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little inspection on this, and just get a feel for the build quality out of the box of these. So first things, they're sitting on the table here. Let's get the tissue out so we can get a feel of the silhouette without any stuffing paper in. Okay, so first thing what I want to look at here is symmetry, and of course, first thing is, do you have the right pair of shoes here? Now these say made in Indonesia, and this is a size 9, and this is also a size 9, also made in Indonesia. So we're gonna just check that you got a matched pair, and this is interesting right away. That this one looks a little glossy compared to the other one. That's interesting. Not that rad. So what we're looking at is stitching quality, cleanliness. How are the cut edges? The embroidery on these heel logos doesn't look that straight, doesn't look that centered to me, and it looks like it's kind of creeping toward the collar line a little bit. It's not exactly centered on the piece. And in fact, the embroidery here, there's a loose thread hanging out right on the embroidery. So I'm starting to not be that impressed with this pair of shoes here. Granted, these are not expensive shoes. They're Dunks. And actually, we've looked at, sort of the Jordans and stuff. And these are not expensive shoes. And at the time, they were second tier, right? There's no airbag in these. They were always the lower end shoe. Interesting, just looking at the toe box, it looks pretty sloped, which is not my preference. I would like to see the vamp come and square off a little bit. I'm gonna have to do a little research on that. But what I do like about these is the opening is really nice and smooth, and this is something that a lot of shoemakers struggle with. It can be a little difficult to get the linings perfectly smooth, but here you can see the linings are perfectly smooth around the collar. The toe tip here, it's not perfectly round and symmetrical. There's kind of a bump out there. And we'll actually get inside and try to feel if those bumps are coming through the inside. Okay. So we're looking at stitching quality, and are we here it gets a little close to the edge. Here it's a little far from the edge. When you look at the swoosh, you see, okay, how close it is here, and how when you hook around, there's a little bit more space. This cut edge is not perfectly clean. And actually cut edges, that's something that we picked out a lot in this recent factory visit. There's a couple of things. If it's cut by automatic machine, make sure you change the blade often enough. But also, make sure that if you're using die cut, right? If you're using a die cut like one of these, number one, make sure the die is sharp. But also, the cutting mat is kind of like a plastic board, and you want to make sure that plastic board is in relatively good shape. If you cut so often that it just becomes a mass of cuts, then the surface is not smooth anymore. You don't get even pressure, and you want to replace the cutting mat every so often to make sure you can get clean cuts. So of course it's a black edge on white, so you're going to see every little piece of every little rough edge you're going to see. But hey man, if you're going to make black and white shoes, you got to deal with it, right? Here's a little backing paper stuck in there too. Not so great. Yeah, I'm not that. The rear embroidery here is actually what bugs me, because you got to be centered, and you want to make sure that the shoe sits on the last straight up and down. The arrangement of the pieces, they look like they're all in the right place. There's nothing too, as we're looking here, and they're perfectly clean. You see a little bit of over gluing. Let's see, which you can see here. There's just a little bit of over glue from underneath the outsole up onto the leather. Hey, between friends, 1 millimeter or 2 is okay. As long as you don't see any grinding, right? If they've buffed the edge and it comes above the glue line, that's not cool. But a little bit of over glue is okay, rather than under glue. When you underglue, when you start pushing right along the edge, you'll see the upper gap out, and you don't want that at all. So a little over glue is better than under glue. Okay. Now the other thing about this shoe, and we'll when we cut into it, we'll see, is what is this thing really made out of, right? Is this black leather? Is it synthetic, or is it action leather that's had the edge painted? The only way to know is to really cut into it. But the material looks pretty decent. Let's open this shoe up and take a look inside, and just see what we can see. I mean, this like 210D nylon tongue, I know that's the style. I just look at how crinkly and wrinkly it is, and I know that's how they made them. But personally, I'm not a big fan of that. Okay, so what I'm actually feeling in the tongue for is, you want to make sure the tongue is attached nice and smooth and straight. And looking at the way the collar lining wraps around the eye stay, that's pretty decent. There's a little back and forth, so you see there's a little bit of extra stitching here. Not perfect, but it's not going to come apart. It's not going to be uncomfortable. So we'll just keep going. Inside the shoe feels pretty smooth. The footbed is lightly tacked in. We're going to take that out. So okay, so this is where, first things first. Let's get our calipers out here, and we'll see. It's about 5 millimeters. Okay. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to use the durometer tester. And you want to be careful when you're using your tester that you don't, A, measure the table, or B, measure your hand. So you want to just gently push in, and we'll read it here, and we'll see. Okay, so just so you can see how that reads, it's reading about somewhere in the low 30s for a footbed foam. 30C, 35C, that's perfectly acceptable. I mean, this is not expensive footbed. So when we open up the shoe, you're going to look inside, and you're going to see, those threads hanging out here. This is from the outsole channel stitch, right? So they generally try to cut them short or tape them down. So this one, actually, they've put a little glue under there to hold them down. And so you can see the zigzag stitching, right? That's because this shoe is stroboled. So this is a piece of fabric that they use to close the bottom of the upper. That is how this shoe should be made. And yeah, actually, it feels like might be some EVA in there. So we're gonna when we get around to it, we'll cut this open and look. But generally, you're gonna run your hand inside and just feel, around up in the toe tip to make sure everything comes together smooth. These areas here where there's a lot of layers, there tends to be lumps and bumps inside the shoe. This shoe feels pretty good. And then where the tongue attaches, particularly on the edge, you want to get your hand in there and just see how smooth it is to make sure there isn't too many layers piled up. So this actually is a little bit of a bump there, but should be okay. These shoes sit relatively flat. Toe spring, looks okay. It's a little bit, the ramp, it's a little bit strange. I have to retrain my eye to remember if that's right or not. But in general, this is not an expensive shoe. The materials aren't particularly exotic or anything, but it's reasonably well made. Like I said, I'm a little not so happy with what they've done with the back part of the logo. But here, now we're going to compare it to the fake one. And, the first things first, when you pick these up, these are roughly the same size. Okay, this one's a little smaller, but this is dramatically lighter, right? And the reason it's dramatically lighter is because it's injection molded, and I don't think there's any midsole. You can feel how it's kind of oil canning, but also you can see right away that the design is not right. They've sort of made negative space here, and these lines are a lot finer. So they didn't exactly replicate the design, but just when you start to push on it, right? This one feels relatively solid because there's something going on inside there, and this one, it starts to oil can, right? So there's something missing there. So the stitching quality of this one, it looks okay. The stitching is relatively close to the edge. It's black on black. It's a little difficult to see. Interesting that the back logos seem to have sort of the same problem. Not quite straight. I mean, actually, you can see the fake one has a lot of alignment marks on it. Those aren't necessarily wrong. From shoemaking perspective, it's just not how Nike does it, right? So that is the giveaway to whether this thing's real or not. These are made out of two completely different shoe materials, right? This is synthetic nubuck, and this is a real leather, whether it's coated or, but we'll check that in a second. But this is all synthetic material, and you can see how soft it is. And of course, because this shoe, is fake and it came out of wherever it came from, the material is wrinkled and dirty. So that's pretty rough stuff. And you can see on the tongue, they've used a completely different material and a completely different construction, where this has a nylon face and a binding edge and a woven label. This thing is made out of a synthetic material, and they've stitched and turned the tongue instead of binding it. And then, this sort of looks like fabric, but it's just screen printed on there. It's not actually a woven label. So there's a lot wrong there. Actually, I do like the show lacing on that. That's pretty cool. But inside the lining is hanging a little bit loose. It's a little bit wrinkly. Let's lift up the. Oh yeah, okay. Okay, so we're lifting up the footbed, and what they've done is they've glued a little piece of lasting board on there, and just so you can see, the footbed is about 3.5 millimeters thick versus 5, but then they have a little piece of lasting board here, and this lasting board is 1.8 millimeters, but that lasting board is trying to compensate for the fact that the shoe itself doesn't have a midsole. This is injection molded PVC or TPR actually, it looks a little silvery. When you see a little sort of silvery effect, that tells you that it's TPR. But here you can see that the egg crate in the bottom, and that's sort of the faux cushioning of this shoe. You know, you notice the construction is quite different too, where here on the real one, the eye stay piece is sewn down, and here it's a flap, and then you can see the zigzag, you know, putting it together underneath. That's, you know, very wrong. Here's the back of the piece. We can see that this is a man-made synthetic material here. So, you know, I showed you the inside of this shoe here, and what you see is you've got the white Strobel sock or Strobel board. It's fabric, and then you see the zigzag stitch all around it, right? Around the edge, right? So that's your Strobel stitching, right? So this shoe, you still see some zigzag around, but that zigzag is holding a heavy string, and that string is used to last the shoe. So whereas this shoe, you know, the bottom is closed with that piece of fabric, and you force the last into it. You force the last into the shoe. You know, you take this last and you stuff it in, and that stretches the shoe to get its shape. In this case, you're still using a last, but instead of forcing the upper in and stretching it to shape, you actually slide the upper on and you pull the string. And in the bottom of that last, when you're string lasting, will have kind of two little pins, and you sort of hook the string onto this, you know, this little area right here is where you hook the string on, and you pull it as tight as you can. So when we look into this shoe here, you can see that the bottom is not closed. That is what you're looking at is really the plastic, the injection mold, and you can see this bump in the middle of the back here. That's the injection port for the plastic. So, you know, it's really it's really a down and dirty way to make a shoe. String lasting isn't inherently bad. You just don't get this. You don't get the same tension. But this type of outsole, you know, you can get high quality shoes made with string lasting and injection molded soles. This just doesn't happen to be one of them. This is pretty rough. Okay, so I think, you know, so that's kind of the deal here, right? You know, when you're looking at these shoes, you're looking at the construction method that's going into them, and you're looking at, you know, is the upper straight on the outsole? Are the cut edges clean? Do the parts line up? Is it actually constructed the correct way? And you can pretty well see that this shoe is none of those things. You know, the quality of the logos, the upper's not actually sitting straight, you know, on the, we'll slide that over. The upper's not really sitting straight. The center marks aren't centered. You know, this is what you're standing on, right? So, you know, if anyone says fake shoes, not a big deal, well, they suck, and this is why. Okay. We're going to, you know, we've been at it for about 20 minutes. What I'm going to do is maybe we'll take a commercial break or something, and I'll have a cup of coffee, and we're going to come back, and we're going to cut into these shoes. Okay. Hey folks, it's Wade the Shoe Dog. We are back here with the Nike Dunk. This is a pair of fake ones that a friend of mine picked up in Mexico, and this is a pair of real ones that I picked up. If you're here for this, if you're here for the second half and you watched the first half already, thank you. I know it's been 20 minutes picking through this. Now we're gonna get the knives out and we're gonna go into these shoes. You know, if you're just catching this video, because here's where we're gonna look at the inside of these shoes. You know, stop and, you know, go back and look at the other half of the video, and we'll see what we got here. Okay. let's get the, because now it's time to start cutting. All right. Because we really do want to see what's going on in this. Now, we've opened up the Air Jordan low and the high, and you've actually seen a real midsole. You know, this shoe, when it was originally designed, was the inexpensive one. So we won't be surprised when we get into it and we see a lot less, right? That's just what we're going to expect here. Okay. I want to get a good look at the heel counter of this too. You know what I have is, you can hang on for a second. I'll be right back. We're going to find that other knife. I think it's right over here. There we go. All right. Let's get into this. Watch your fingers, please. Sharp knives are the best. Remember to cut towards your body. Okay. Let's get into this. Okay. We're just going to go right through. Okay. We're just going to go. Let's be careful. I want these cuts to line up so that when we do our photography, we get it looking good. All right. They're good enough. Okay. All right. So, hey, actually, we actually have a midsole in here. In fact, we have a full-length midsole. That's a treat. If you've looked at the Air Jordan, it has an airbag in it, but not much else. The forefoot of the Jordan 1 is right on the ground, and I don't know if that was Mike's thing and he liked it that way, or they were saving money, or why they made it that way. But here at least, we've got a midsole in the front. Okay. Okay. So here you can see what you're standing on when you get the dunk, right? This is a pretty normal amount of heel lift in the last. We've got that last close by, but let's just take a measure here, and in the forefoot looks like 5 or 6. Actually, let's make sure we're not measuring the rubber. Okay, maybe 4.5. And in the back here, we're looking at like 12. Sorry, we're looking at 12. So 4.5 and 12. Okay. Now let's get our durometer tester out, and we're gonna check 2 things here. The midsole, you're gonna expect somewhere 50. Is pretty typical for a midsole. It'll last long here. Okay. 46 in the back, and we're just going to check the front. A little higher in the front. Not unheard of. These pieces are okay. Yeah, 49, 50. Yeah, all right. A little bit softer in the back here. 49, 45. Okay. These pieces in the bad old days, they were just die cut. We look at this piece, and what we're gonna want to do. Actually, the Strobel is glued down really well. Is we want to try to peel it back, and or we'll try to peel it here. Well, it looks like it's glued down pretty good. In here, we can see there's a little radius in the corner, right? And that radius tells me that this piece actually, instead of being die cut and profiled that it might have been molded, which is, you know, hey, it's just efficient way to make it. But we'll have to see. Okay, that's the inside of the dunk. Let's see, we've got a little bit extra foam in the tongue, and now that we've got the shoe open, let's look at the lining and everything in here. And actually, you know, this is pretty smooth, right? You know, I like that they've actually sewn down the edge of the collar lining. And we're going to look at the cross section here. Okay, so just a regular, it's a molded counter, but it's die cut. Now, what I'm looking at here is, see, here's the white leather, and you can see it just looks a little bit gray. So this piece is chrome tanned action leather, and there's nothing, you know, good nor bad about it. It just is what it is. The black is dyed all the way through, so it looks like we have, you know, black full grain leather. I mean, the grain has been, you know, sort of pigmented and painted, but it's dyed through, so it's not plastic coated action leather versus what the white is. And again, there's nothing bad about action leather. It's common as mud. Now the other thing that I want to do is decide which half of the shoe I'm going to keep. I think it's this one we'll keep, right? Okay, we'll keep that. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut into the quarter panel here. So I want to look at the eye stay, but really what I also want to check here is what this quarter panel is made out of. And what we're trying to see is if they use the same material for the quarter panel as they did for the tongue. And actually, when you look at the two cut edges together, they look the same, right? It's the same. So sometimes a shoe company will use a synthetic leather to make the quarter panel underlay. They might even change materials from the inside of the shoe to the outside. So that's another twist, is to sort of really look closely, you know, at what they've and try to feel if the material on the inside of the shoe is softer, to whether they use the real leather or fake. And hey, is it good or bad? It just is. If you can save a little money and still hit leather duty, then that's a better shoe for you in the end. Okay, so that's what the inside of the real one looks like. You know, there's no mystery. Oh, actually, I was going to measure the rubber just for. Now you can see the difference between these two durometer testers. The foam one has more of a blunt pin, and this one is pretty sharp. When you get to the plastic reader, it's really sharp. So we're gonna just take a measure here of that lug. Okay, 65, 68, 67. That's typical. Okay, so we'll set those aside. Actually, we really don't need those to look at this shoe, because this shoe doesn't have any foam in it at all. So let's see. Is this the one I want to cut? Let me see. I think that's that one. That's that one. Yeah, this is the one that we want to cut. All right, we're going to cut this open now. And we're going to get a look. I mean, obviously, we can see what's inside, right? There's no foam inside. We can see everything. But we want to look at the heel counter material. Yeah, that cuts like butter, because there's nothing there. Oh, let's get the shoe out of there. And, so these cut shoes are going to all end up in our, either on the website as an article with some more in-depth photography, or we'll we have our How to Spot Fake Shoes book. Maybe volume 2, we'll put these in there. We'll see. But hey, if you haven't seen that book, go to Shoemakers Academy and check it out. It's called How to Spot Fake Sneakers, and I cut up some really nice shoes, and you can really see what's going on inside those. So let's get inside this not nice shoe. Okay, so yeah, there's some foam in there, but it's really soft. There's almost nothing there, and there you can see. Well, we'll get this open here. Oh man, that is so soft. There's just nothing to it. All right. Yeah, that blade, you gotta be careful to cut straight. It's so easy to cut this. Okay. All right, so, just like we saw from above, now you can see you're just standing on egg crate. And this is why they put that firmer board in there, so that at least they can spread the load out, so that when you step into the shoe, you don't automatically feel that you're standing on you're standing on a leather, you're standing on a plastic spike. But let's just quickly get this section here for you, so you can see what we're looking at. Just cut that down. Just want to show you this cross section. It's not pretty. All right. So here we are. There isn't, this is good. 12 millimeters, that's plenty of foam. That's very standard, what you're going to find in a real shoe. But this right here, we had a 3.5 millimeter foam, and then a rigid board, and now you're standing on the egg crate. So not so great. And then you can get a really good look at the string elasted construction of this, right? That's the string that goes all the way around to close the upper, and then you're just standing on the plastic. The inside of this is they actually have used some sort of microfiber polyester on the backing. So this is a non-woven, and they've basically constructed the whole toe cap of this stuff. It's not the worst. Actually, this shoe is not made in a very expensive way. You can see when you open up a shoe of this quality, of this character, you can see the stitching on the inside of the upper, right? They've stitched all the way through. When you look at a higher end shoe, Jordan 1s, etc., right? You don't see the stitching going through the inside of the shoe. So here you can see they've piled up the layers flat, and then they've sewn through. So you see any stitch that's on the outside is on the inside next to your foot. Now, again, this is not a really inexpensive shoe, but it's at a certain, mid-price level. This is made really inexpensively, but they've used all man-made materials. Now, in the United States, this shoe wants to be leather. Number one, it's a sturdy, reliable, resistant material, but also you pay less import duty. This will be a 9.5% shoe. This synthetic shoe is made in Mexico this way, and they just use the cheapest materials they could use. So here you can see it does have a heel counter in it, that blue stuff, and this blue stuff it's called a chemical sheet, and it's a resin saturated cardboard essentially, and you just put a little solvent on it, and it makes it soft, and then you put it into the shoe, and it roughly, it roughly takes the shape versus Nike's using a die cut piece, but it's thermal molded. They have a back part molding machine that makes this nice curve. I mean, you can feel how nice the curve is here. On a low cut shoe, you don't necessarily see the hourglass shape, but when you look at these two together, you can start to see this shoe sort of comes out and comes in again, and it actually feels pretty firm, and this shoe kind of comes straight down, and it is really soft, right? So what's the harm? Are you gonna roll your ankle in this thing? Yeah, maybe. It's pretty bad. Okay, so let's keep our real ones segregated from our fake ones. So there's the heel counter. The lining isn't pegged down at all, and I can feel the foam is pretty low density. Is this shoe gonna hurt your feet? Yeah, if you're after a day or two, when that EVA is packed out and you're standing on this egg crate, it's gonna suck. So, folks, that's that's kind of the tale of two shoes here. The Dunk itself is not an incredibly expensive shoe. It's made relatively inexpensively. The fake one is pretty shocking. Not great. But it, again, like I said, the Dunk is not an expensive shoe. It's not going to hurt you. This shoe, the fake one here, this is going to hurt you. So, hey, folks, if you enjoyed this, please check out more videos, like and subscribe. Please swing on over. If you're not sick of listening to me talk about shoes, swing on over to Shoemakers Academy. We have tons of books, tons of courses. If you're interested in this, how to spot fake shoes, we have a book called How to Spot Fake Sneakers, where we do exactly this exercise, and I show you what to look for and how to look for it, and really kind of how to do the point-by-point inspection. And this inspection technique is exactly what we use in the factory when we're buying real shoes. When I go in to look at a factory, I'm looking for all these same things: glue, stitching, symmetry, all those things. All those things we look at, and that's just part of being a shoe dog is having the eye to know what's right. So, hey, folks, I appreciate you coming by, and like and subscribe and swing by the website. Thanks a lot, folks. More coming soon. Bye.